You ready to do this, Johnny?
Let's do it, Spence. Punch it, Chewy.
Welcome, super friends, to the Fortress of Nerditude podcast, a safe place to talk about all things in nerd and pop culture. I'm Spencer Stapleton, and my co-pilot tonight is Jonny Casino.
Hey, what's up, man?
We're two best friends and lovers that, despite being fathers and husbands, we just refuse to grow up. Thank you for joining us. This is episode number 65. We release every Thursday morning on iTunes, Google Music, Spotify, YouTube, Stitcher, and everywhere podcasts are available. If you like what you're hearing, hit that subscribe button and get us automatically each and every week in your ear hole. How are you, Jonny Casino, my lover?
So, I have to start by pointing out a couple things. One, I appreciate that you can express that you can express that with me and not just Brita. But also, if anyone liked or disliked my Punch It Chewy a minute ago, there was a listener that happened to critique my last one as being not manly enough. So I'm just trying to please the crowds.
Yeah. Now, so in all fairness, Steve Madura is out traveling for work this week, wasn't available to record with me. And so Johnny so graciously said he'd love to come back and hang out in the Fortress of Nerditude this week again. And so now we have Johnny with us again.
Yeah, man, I'm a repeat offender.
How about that, man?
You know,
you're a recidivist, as they say.
Is that a word?
Yeah, it's technical. It means you're a repeat offender.
Oh, I guess one makes you sound like all professional, and the other one makes it sound like you should be in prison.
Usually, the term recidivist does usually apply to people in prison that are coming back. At least that's where I always hear it.
I mean, you know, now I'm just picturing you as a prisoner. Which wing with the look? I mean, the goatee, the bald head. I
mean, I've got it going on. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, you do.
I would be the belle of the ball.
Prison, I don't think that's what you want to be in prison.
Do you remember? Did you ever watch The Office? Let me preface that by asking.
The Office is one of my favorite shows ever. To this day, I am still searching for that show that can replace either The Office or Scrubs, and nothing has quite done it for me since.
Have you seen Parks and Rec? Because I'd say that's close.
It's close, and it was done by, I think, the same people that did The Office.
Yeah, a lot of the same people, yep.
And it was an amazing show, but it still didn't quite do it the way The Office did. Like, it was still just shy.
So there's that scene in The Office where Michael Scott comes in as Prison Mike because he found out one of the coworkers had gone to prison for like tax evasion. And so he's like, yo, I'm Prison Mike. He's like, hey, yeah, he's like, you'd be the belle of the ball. And he's just like pointing at, what's his face? Ryan.
God.
He's pointing at Ryan and saying like, you'd be the belle of the ball. All the guys would have their way with you. And he's like, what? Like just super uncomfortable. Like, it just makes me laugh. And then he's like, let me tell you about the Dementors. Oh, that show was so good.
It's one of those shows that, like, there are moments in there that are so awkward that you almost can't watch them. Like, it is almost hard to watch. Like, have you ever seen a show called Hello Ladies?
No.
Okay, so it's Stephen Merchant is the main guy, and Stephen Merchant is one of the guys behind the TV show The Office. Like, him and
Correct,
Ricky Gervais,
yes.
Right?
Yep.
And he plays this guy that just doesn't know how to talk to women. And it's an HBO show. It lasted like a season or two, not a lot. I have not been able to make it through the first 3 episodes because as funny as it is, it's just that hard to watch. And there are those moments in The Office when Michael Scott starts talking and you're just like a lot of them are funny. Most of them aren't as bad, but you get those moments where you're like, oh, this is just painful to watch.
It's like, I made a dating profile, and I wanted them to know that I was okay with, little kids. So I made my nickname Little Kid Lover. Just like so awkward. I love I love The Office for that cringeworthy humor, for like the stuff like I would have people say I can't watch it. I had to stop. I couldn't watch it. It was too much. It was too awkward. Like it just made me feel so uncomfortable. I love that kind of humor. Like that's the stuff that like I thrive on. Like I love to watch people squirm. It's like, you're being messed with, but for some reason, because it kind of doesn't fit into what they find to be, normal social behavior.
Yeah.
Like it just puts people like super like on edge. I love it. It just like that show is amazing. I loved it. Anyway.
So real quick, so we have the TV on a lot at home, like as the background or whatever else. We might not be watching it, but it's on a lot. And if it's a sitcom that's on, like odds are it's The Office. Like that is the sitcom that we just always have on repeat somewhere in the house.
Right.
What is the best episode? Do you have a best episode of that show? Because I have one hands down.
So I guess it's hard to say. Like, do you go with like best for like pure comedy value, or like best for like the story arc? That kind of whole like the Jim Pam thing, right? Like you could say like, oh, I have my favorite storyline that like involves Jim and Pam, because of their thing, or like just like the one for overall with like some of the best humor. And I gotta say, I don't remember the name of the episode, but it's the episode where they have the safety training and they bring in the lady to teach them to do CPR, and and Dwight's like, they're like, okay, pump your Michael. They're like, do it to the tune of Staying Alive, and Michael gets down and he starts pumping. He goes, first I was afraid, I was petrified. Kept thinking, and she's like, no, the person's gonna die. It's Staying Alive. And so like Kelly starts dancing, and everyone's kind of like doing the Staying Alive, and then they're like you stopped chest compressions, it's dead. And then Dwight like reaches into his boot, pulls out like a K-bar knife, and he's like time to harvest the organs, and he like plunges the knife into the chest of the dummy and like starts cutting open. They're like, Dwight, what are you doing? And they're looking, and like the camera pans back to them, and they're all like, it's like super weirded out. And then they flip back over to Dwight, and he's cut the face off of the dummy, and he has it on his face. He's like, hello, Clarice. And does that. And they're like, ah, they all start screaming. And this is like just, I think it was like right after Stanley had his heart attack, because Dwight set the fire and like was just trying to like make a little smoke, but then accidentally set the fire and got that was that whole same episode. Like that episode was top to bottom, like funny all the way through, and like crazy cringe worthy in parts. Like that probably is like my favorite for like the comedy aspect.
So my favorite episode, and my wife and I happen to agree on this one, as spouses often don't.
Right.
So there's an episode in season 2, which I think season 2 is probably the best season in my opinion.
Season 2 is great.
So there's an episode in season 2 called Conflict Resolution. And the whole premise is that there's some people that have issues with each other, and they discover that they've been going to Toby and just talking to Toby, and nothing gets fixed, and Michael wants to fix this.
Right.
And there's a
win-win-win.
Yes, win-win-win. And it's like, that's called compromise.
Yeah.
It's so funny. It's so ridiculous. And there's some heartwarming moments in there, and there's some character defining moments and stuff in there between Pam and Jim also, if you want to have a little of that sprinkled in. Right. There's a portion of it where Dwight finds out that there's a special box of every complaint he's ever made against Jim, and it's just been staying under this desk, right? And so Michael Scott takes Jim and Dwight into the conference room and sits them down, and it's like, we're going to go through these. And he's just reading out the different pranks that Jim has caused him. And then you'll see like Jim laughing and like explaining them. And there was one where it's like, Jim made me hit myself in the head with my phone. And it cuts to Jim. He's like, yeah, you just put a few nickels in there every single day, and then one day you just take them all out. And it was so funny. Just like I cry every time I watch that episode. It is so funny.
So good. I do remember that episode, once you start bringing it up, and I was like, that whole box that Toby has. And it's like a full, like paper box, like, that would have a few reams of paper in it. Like it's not like a tiny thing. It's not like a little manila envelope. It's like something like 9 years worth of complaints or something.
God, the stuff he does to them. And I actually got into a conversation recently with someone about those pranks. And it was actually Chelsea Capri, and she was telling me her favorite prank is when they have the Asian guy sit in and pretend he's Jim, and they change the
that's
photo.
So good.
Yeah, well, that guy's hilarious too. I mean, that's the guy from Fresh Off the Boat, and he also played that.
Really, Dwight? You don't see color? Good for you. That's the line. He's like, you didn't know. He's like, you're not Jim. You're Asian. That's so good.
Yeah, you can actually find that GIF on Twitter. There's a GIF of that.
Yeah,
it's great.
Well, doesn't Pam like lean over and kiss him, and then like Dwight's just like no. He's like there's been identity fraud or something like that.
The identity theft one was when Jim comes in dressed like Dwight. And he's like,
yes.
It's like identity theft isn't funny.
And he goes, beats Battlestar Galactica, beats Bears Battlestar Galactica. My goal. Yeah, love it. I love that show. We actually just finished rewatching it a little while back, and it was my first time actually getting through the whole series all the way through, because the last time I rewatched it, I got up to kind of when Michael left, and then I just stopped. Because
it's not as good after that.
It's not as good. However, when I rewatched it, the season with Robert California, that was super awkward and super weird originally, and it felt super weird after losing Steve Carell.
Yeah.
Upon rewatching, I was like, actually, the character feels right because he's super cringeworthy, and he says all these like kind of kitschy buzzwords. They don't really mean anything, and he's a different kind of a boss as Michael. Michael was lovable and goofy. This guy's just like creepy and weird, but he kind of gets that cringeworthy humor over in the show. I actually enjoyed it much better rewatching it and looking at it in that term.
Well, are you a James Spader fan?
I've liked certain things that he's been in over the years, but I'd say on a whole, not entirely.
Okay, have you seen Boston Legal?
No, I have not seen Boston Legal.
To my knowledge, it's not streaming anywhere. I need to find it. I need to rewatch the show. He, in every episode almost, he gives a monologue because he's an attorney and it's part of the opening or closing statements or whatever. And his monologues are some of the greatest things I've ever heard.
Really?
Not to mention, it also has Murphy Brown, whatever her real name is, Candace
Bergen.
Yeah. So it's got her in it and she's really great. And it has, what's his name from Star Trek?
William Shatner.
Yes, William Shatner, who is just phenomenal. Like if you want a hour-long law drama that will just have you in tears laughing from time to time and blow, like it is one of the best shows I've ever seen.
Really? I'll see if I can find it because I never watched it originally.
Oh, it's so good.
So what else is new, Johnny? You've it's been about a month since you were on last, and I know I've heard some rumblings. I've seen some things on the Twitters. I hear you've got a new podcast, my friend.
So Chelsea Capri, if you don't know who Chelsea Capri is, she's the wife of Sean Capri. And if you don't know who Sean Capri is,
Sean Capri's the husband of Chelsea Capri.
Yeah.
Ta-da! Yeah.
There you go. So, Sean and I have been friends and whatever for, I don't know, I guess pretty much ever since I was on a show. He and I got to where we talk off and on quite a bit, and something triggered it where Chelsea and I started talking and stuff through Twitter and everything else. And we realized that we liked some of the same shows and all this stuff. And we ended up through a series of conversations decided that we have very different takes on like parenting and stuff. And so we're like, you know what? Let's do a parenting podcast. Like she's been wanting to podcast. Sean's been wanting her to podcast. Like, let's do a parenting podcast. We'll pick a couple topics. We'll give our own separate takes because we are, I would say besides the fact that we're both white middle-class people, we're very diverse at everything besides that.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
And so we just sit there and talk about parenting stuff. It's called a parenting podcast. If you search for it anywhere, you have to type that whole thing in or you won't find it. Or if you go to my Twitter, I should have it pinned or something on there with links to it. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's not for everyone, but if you're into parenting stuff, check it out and who knows? Maybe you'll like it.
Well, we do have a lot of super friends that are parents, so I'd recommend it. I'd say go out and listen to it because here's the thing: you got Jonny Casino, and now if you've been listening to the Fortress of Nerditude a while, you've heard Jonny Casino. You know he's a good, funny guy. And then Chelsea Capri's got to be like one of the best people around. Like she is great. So how could you go wrong? That's all I'm saying. How could you go wrong?
Yeah, you couldn't. It turns out.
No. No, you can't. And when you drag the show down, inevitably she'll save it, so it's okay.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, any success we have is going to be completely on her coattail. I've already told her this.
Well, that's cool, man. I'm excited for you. That's exciting stuff starting a podcast. I remember what it was like when I started this podcast, and I remember like all the trying to get everything right and doing all that. And so, I know you're probably going through a lot, and it's probably really freaking busy for you right now, but still, that's awesome.
It's nice because, and this is actually goes back to you, is whenever you and I first kind of met, I had we got on Skype or something, and you kind of broke down how to use Reaper and how to do certain things that I wasn't able to do. And so I'm actually, like with the other shows I do, it's a little bit more raw. This one I actually edit it and try to make it sound good, unlike everything else, it doesn't sound good. But so a lot of these stuff that you had told me, and you kind of showed me how to set up different things. So I've been doing that, which is really good.
Welcome to the dark side.
Yeah. But man, we put out our first episode a couple of days ago, and I was like making it go live, and I'm messaging back and forth with Chelsea. And I mean, for me, it's like, yeah, I want people to like it. But I mean, I've been podcasting for the last couple of years.
Sure.
And it's like, okay, I hope people like this. It's going to be fun. But I wasn't super nervous, even though I was going over this thing 1,000 times. Chelsea's like, oh my God, I'm so nervous. Nervous. And I'm like, it's fine. Like, they'll like you for sure. Don't worry.
Yeah, you're fine. Yeah, no worries. Let me give you a quick rundown of what my week has been like, because it's been crazy busy. So, recorded last week with Steve, and then we were kind of talking about what we were going to try to do, because I went and saw Black Panther, and originally Steve and I had talked about recording a Sidekick podcast on Black Panther, and then he has to travel for work this week, and like it just wasn't going to work out. So I went and saw Black Panther, and I saw that Saturday morning. And then that evening, I recorded with Nathan Thomas, who's on PSVG, and That's Entertaining Pod. On Twitter, he's at Voiced by Nathan. Nathan and I recorded about Black Panther. I immediately got off that call, and then I joined Mo and Dev over on PSVG OT as a guest and recorded with them. So, like, a lot of podcasting stuff going on, obviously, and then, obviously trying to get prepared for this show here. But then as well, since it's the long President's Day holiday here in the U.S., like my wife and I just decided we really wanted to like make this weekend like a big thing for the kids, like do a lot of stuff with them, spend a lot of time, because they're always, every morning that they wake up and they have to go to daycare, they always like almost beg us, like, can we please stay home? Can like we all stay home and be together? And I'm like, like it just it breaks your freaking heart. I'm like, buddy, I want to stay home with you so bad, but Daddy has to get paid, and the only way I get paid is if I go to work. So this weekend we went to a pancake restaurant, which means Cracker Barrel, by the way.
Oh, okay. Hold on a second. That couldn't mean IHOP?
No, because, well, I mean, it could. It technically could. And we should go there because it would be cheaper for us, because usually kids eat free after 4 p.m. or something like that. But they love going to Cracker Barrel because there's toys and candy that they can look at in the little general store afterwards. And so I had to tell them, I said, okay, we can go to the pancake restaurant, but no toys, no candy. And of course, like when we got out of there, there was like a little bit of a line at the register. So kids are starting to wander off. And I was like, Brita, take the boys out to the car. Here's my keys. Go now. And she actually took them outside and sat down on the little rocking chairs and at the little big checkerboard that they have out front of like every Cracker Barrel across the country. So we did that. So we went to the pancake restaurant with the kids to kind of like kick the weekend off with them. Then we went to it's called a Children's Treehouse Museum. It's about 15 minutes away from us, but basically it's like this big kids museum with like, they can climb on a train, like a half-size train. They can climb on like a fire truck, and they've got like all these interactive like musical instruments, and they can dress up and like ride kind of like this like little fake horse thing, and they can like there's a replica of like the Oval Office, and they've got like this kind of like King Arthur kind of court with like this like little stage for like plays, and there was like a magician doing a magic show like down in one of their little theaters. It's this really kind of cool children's museum, but they have this kind of like giant artificial tree that kind of goes up through the middle of it, and the kids can either climb the stairs in it, or they can kind of climb through like this web netting. Looks like something you'd see on Survivor.
Yeah, our children's museum has something like that, and it's like one little section of it.
Yeah, so like it's this whole thing. Like it's a pretty big deal here. Like it was like $80 to get like a year membership for the two kids, and then they get to come in for free. No, not at all. So we went to the Children's Treehouse Museum, then we went to the zoo, and we went to the zoo like so a big storm just blew through here, like a whole bunch of snow just dropped, and they said, oh, it's going to be like 55 degrees and sunny. And it was like literally like 3 hours before the snow was going to hit. And it was like 46 degrees outside when we got there. It wasn't as warm as it was supposed to be. But the kids still wanted to go to the zoo. So like we walked around the zoo, and like the zoo was like virtually empty. We probably saw like maybe 7 other families total.
Oh, wow.
And the thing, like, it was just really empty, which was great because we got to do whatever we wanted. But we did the zoo, and then today we took the kids to the pool, and we took Charlie to a pool, I'd say maybe when he was like 1.5, but like Jackson's never really been to a full pool, but they've been asking to go to the pool and to swim. And so we took them to the pool, and they don't know how to swim. They haven't had lessons yet, but we got in the water with them, and I kind of held under their tummies and like, kind of propped them up and told them to kick, and they were kind of trying to do a little doggy paddle. And I'm just kind of holding them floating around like, look, you're swimming. And Jackson just loved that. And then we were getting him to like jump from like this like little ledge into the water into our arms. And he was like he's just fearless. Our youngest, he's, about to turn 4 in April. So like crazy, like, week. And then of course, like I got up today and I got on the treadmill and I exercised, and then I had to shovel all this snow, and then we went to the pool. And so like I was telling you before this, like well over my 10,000 steps, my legs feel like jello. And it's like, 4:00 in the afternoon. I'm like, oh, daddy hurts, kids. Let's take it easy. And then so we just came back and tossed in a frozen pizza for the kids and let them eat pizza and watch some Olympics and called it a night. But it's been a crazy like weekend, I guess, basically.
But it sounds like it was fulfilling.
Very much so. Like we did spend like the whole time with the kids. I don't think, except for Black Panther, which I went to Saturday morning, and the kids were actually up and doing something with mom during that time. Like everything else, like the recording of the podcast was after the kids went to bed. So like we just made sure that like all 3 days, like we just spent a ton of time with the kids, and we focused on them and doing stuff with them, and like trying to make it, a little special, instead of like, hey, we just have one extra day off, we're just going to sit at home and, be bumps on the log. Like we wanted to do something.
Yeah. Well, so in contrast to that, for President's Day today, I worked the night shift last night. So I came home, I slept for a while. My wife had to work. She's a teacher. Teachers had to work. Kids were off school. We sat around and basically bumps on a log today. Like I was too tired to do anything.
Which is great to do sometimes. Like I get it. Like there's a lot of times where I'm like, kids, we're just gonna stay home today. They're like, yay! Because you take them around, do too much with them, they get a little tired. Thankfully, all the snow that dropped was not snowman snow, what I call snowman snow, where it's not wet enough to stick together. Because if it was, I was gonna have to make a snowman today as well, and I don't know how that was gonna happen. Because we were too busy.
I was in shorts and a t-shirt outside today.
I hate you
sandals.
right now.
Yeah, you know what? You can hate me right now, but we'll talk in August and see who's hating who.
Right. Yeah, I'm like, it'll be like 92. We'll be fine. Yeah. Anyway. Well, good, man. I'm glad you are back with me once again in the Fortress of Nerditude. Let's get to some Rebel Intelligence. What do you say?
Oh, yeah, man. Is that the right response?
Man, you respond however you want.
Yeah, man. No, I love the Rebel Intelligence. This is great.
Let's do it. I always have to let you know, many Bothans died to bring us this information.
Rest in peace, you Bothans.
All right, Johnny, Rebel Intelligence, what do you have for me this week?
So, if anyone knows anything about me, and I'm sure there's at least one or two listeners out there that does, I love Mario. I love Nintendo. I own all the gaming systems. I probably play too much video games, but I love Nintendo. Like, that's where my heart is. I'm actually wearing my old school Mario shirt right now. I've got my...
That's not true, Johnny. You're not wearing a shirt right now. Or
Well,
pants.
About to say,
What
I'm
is
wearing my
going
old
on?
school Mario pants too, unless I'm not and don't realize it. But no, I got my Mario pajamas on right now. So I love Mario. I love Mario. It's one of my top favorite franchises. And Mario is now getting, and I'm trying to actually get over to the actual article here because I didn't have it. Where are you? There you are. Mario is getting its own encyclopedia. So I don't know if you know this, but Zelda has its series of reference books. It's got the, oh God, I can't even think of what they're called now. It's got its encyclopedia, and then it's got like the art book, and then it's got another one, and that kind of gives the story of it, and it breaks down Zelda, which one comes after what, and these different timelines, all this stuff. Well, now the same company is making the thing for Mario, and I'm super excited. Sadly, I don't actually have the Zelda ones, and I really want them, and I don't know why I don't own them. Like, I don't know why I have not clicked the button to buy them off Amazon yet.
Are they reasonably priced, or are they like super pricey?
No, the one I want is only like $15 or $20. It's not bad.
Well, that's not bad at all.
No, I just haven't done. I might have to buy it while we're talking. Like it's, But anyway, yeah. So Mario's getting his own version now, and it's awesome. It's gonna show everything from the Super Mario Brothers from 1985 until Super Mario 3D World. I guess the time period in which they were doing it was kind of a cutoff before Mario Odyssey came out.
That's too bad. Like, I think Mario Odyssey would be a really good addition to have there, because we don't know when we're going to get another big Mario franchise game for Nintendo yet.
Well, okay, so kind of on that thought, have you ever read Chronicles of the 20th Century?
I've read Chronicles of Narnia.
No,
Does that help?
I mean, it's almost the exact same book. I think it's called Chronicles of the 20th Century. It was a series. I don't know who put this thing out. It's a really fat book. And someone had this idea of like, let's take important newspaper clippings for all of the 20th century. So it's supposed to go from 1900 to 1999 or whatever, right?
Sure.
Well, they had to cut it short. They cut it at like 1985 or something like that, because I think someone else maybe was going to be putting one out, and they had to beat the competition. So it feels like it's almost that same thing here. Like they had this idea. Eventually, they had to put a stopping point to be able to keep doing it, and that's what the stopping point is. And Mario's going to go on. And I feel Mario will probably go on forever. So there's going to be a chance for a series 2,
like a volume 2, something like that.
Yeah.
So I like stuff like this. Like, these are things that maybe like I would purchase it, but it's maybe not something like I would like read cover to cover. Like, it may be something like, I've got a, question about this, or I'm curious about this. Maybe I'll read a chapter on like a certain game. It's kind of like I got a couple of years ago, my brother-in-law, Eric Gifford, got me a book. It's basically like the shooting script of The Godfather with like notes by the director, Francis Ford Coppola, like written in the margins of like the shooting script. And it was published as a book with some like photos and some other stuff in it. And like, it is awesome. Like, that's like an amazing gift, because it's something that it's not like I've got the original book by Mario Puzo, and I've read it, and I love the movie. But like, this is like, it's like an extra layer. Like, right, there's more depth to it. You can get it great. You can gain a greater appreciation for like what went into like making the film, but it's not something I'm necessarily going to like read cover to cover all in one sitting. It's something that I'm going to, look at occasionally, and, it's a showpiece, that I bring it out,
definitely.
To show it off.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely one of those things. It's like, look at this cool thing. Like, look how cool this is. And I was actually looking back over my shoulder. I would say I have a record collection. It's only like 4 or 5 albums, but I have one. I think it's a Foo Fighter one, and it has like all the, like, you can see pictures of like the original notes that they were doing as Dave Grohl was writing these songs out, and they're like inside this thing, and it's one of the things that it's something cool to show off.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what price would you pay for this? Like, what price do you think is the right price for this? And I'm assuming maybe you've read through this article, but
I don't think that for something like this, with like an encyclopedia kind of book on like a single topic, I don't think anything more than maybe like a $30 price tag would be something I'd spend. That's just me. What is it retailing for? Or what is it going to retail for?
The article is saying 40. So it's not terrible.
It isn't. However, that's a power bill for some people. That's a plumbing, like a water bill.
Yeah, most definitely. So I was just looking here. So the Legend of Zelda Art and Artifacts is $23. And a lot of these are originally $40. The Zelda Hyrule Historia, which is the one I want, is $24. And the Zelda Encyclopedia is $26, originally $40. So if you wait a little while, like if you really want this, you wait not that long, it's going to come down.
So, and the other thing I guess is if this isn't like a big collector's item, like if it's just a book that's being published, prices probably are going to come down, right? But if it's a collector's item that was like limited run, like let's say they only made 1,000 of them, then yeah, you're not going to see a price drop, and you're probably going to see a price increase, through second market sellers.
Yeah, well, I mean, the article says that Dark Horse, who does these, always does a fancy collector's edition, but there's no specific word out on that. So if you just want the basic one,
gotcha,
which I believe will probably be a hardback,
I would imagine it have to be.
Yeah, you don't want to soft
paperback.
One
Yeah,
I don't know why I couldn't think the word paperback just then.
Hard, soft. I know what you meant.
Yeah. So yeah, that's that, man.
So let me ask you this. Okay, talking about Mario, making me think of my childhood, because obviously, I've been kicking it with Mario since '85. We're homies. Part of my childhood though revolved around toys, and a little while ago I was talking about this, like, childhood toys, and we were kind of talking about that Netflix special on the show, the toys that made us.
Oh, that's so good, man.
Here's the thing, like Hasbro is doing this thing, and like I don't know how I feel about this, and so I'm gonna tell you what they're doing, and you tell me kind of what your initial thoughts are, right? Hasbro's kind of getting into the game of crowdfunding, right? Kickstarter has been around for quite a while, and then there's like a GoFundMe and all that, but Hasbro has come out and saying they're doing something called a HasLab, and it's basically their own Kickstarter, and their first project is a 4-foot-long, 14-pound recreation of Jabba's sail barge from Return of the Jedi. And the way it's going to work is like they're basically looking, I'm trying to remember, I'm going to see if I can find the number. They're looking basically for 5,000 pre-orders. If they get 5,000 pre-orders, then they'll make this thing for all the people that basically supported it through their HasLab, kind of like Kickstarter. But then they're not going to be actually, like, they're not going to be making more of them and trying to sell them to the general public. But this thing that they're looking at doing is worth $500. $500. Now, just for me, I look at this, I'm like, is that cool? Yes, it's a cool thing. Is it $500 cool? Not for me. And on top of that, I don't know that I like the idea that we have toy companies now that are going to say, you know what, we're not really willing to risk and take a gamble on making a toy that may or may not sell. So instead, we'll kind of go the Kickstarter that if we get enough backers, then we'll make it only for them, but then it's not available for other people. It just kind of feels to me like the business, like someone in the marketing department or the business, department was just like, okay, listen, here's what we start doing. We'll start shifting to doing toys this way. That way we only make what people want and we'll never have a failure. But I look at that as like crowdfunding your business. I get it if it's a little startup. I get it if it's, something that's unique, but I'm like, this is Hasbro. They've been making toys, longer than I've been alive. Do they really need crowdfunding to do this? What do you think, Johnny?
So there's a couple of things you got to look at here. Well, first of all, and I'm going to ask this knowing that it might mean I never get asked back on the show ever again. Should I know what Jabba's sailboat thing looks like?
Ooh, wow. Okay, let's start with the basic question. Have you seen Return of the Jedi?
Yes, I've seen every Star Wars movie. I enjoy every Star Wars movie, not maybe in the same way that other people that listen to the show do.
Okay, fair enough.
But I love Star Wars.
Jabba's sail barge is the big floating ship that Jabba is on, where he's got Princess Leia in the gold bikini, and they're going to push Luke and Han and Chewie into the Sarlacc pit. But really, it's kind of like the whole, like the Sting episode where, you've got Lando who's been positioned in place, and R2's got Luke's Luke's lightsaber that he's gonna shoot over to him. The sail barge is like this big. It's like this big ship that's got like these big two kind of like canopy sails on the top of it.
But how much of the outside of this thing do they show in the movie? Because like, it's been a while since I've seen that one. I remember a lot of the scenes from inside it. I don't know that I ever realized that this was a giant boat.
My guess is, my recollection is, you see an exterior shot of it flying towards the Sarlacc pit, and then you see some exterior shots when Luke and Han are kind of looking back at it. And then you see the exterior shot of it like blowing up and going down into the sand right after Luke gets on that turret gun and basically points it down in through the deck and then fires it through the deck.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's when Pizza the Hut goes down, right?
Exactly. Pizza the Hut. So screen time, you probably see more on the inside of the sail barge.
Okay.
Than seeing the outside. However, you do have the battle with Luke fighting off some guys on the top of it and saving Leia, and then they swing over to the little skiff and then they fly away on the little skiff.
Okay, yeah. Okay, now
just for a refresher.
Yes, as far as because I was reading this through this article and I saw that and I was like, oh, that was like that's what the thing looked like. Okay, cool. But as far as the concept, I mean, you have to look at this a couple ways, right? I mean, a company's job is to make money for its investors, and I'm pretty sure Hasbro's a publicly traded company. I can't imagine it's not.
Yep.
Like that's their job. Like their job, it doesn't matter. Basically, they can say screw you to every customer they have because their job is make money for the investors. Like that is their purpose, right? Now, I understand your sentiment of, they have the money, they can make these things and failure, but they found a way where they can do it without the risk. I mean, so I have a few business classes. I have a master's in management and I had to go through a business school. Not as much of it was the business side, but like you learn a few things about the risk and about weighing the risk and whatever else. And if you can eliminate a lot of that stuff to where it's like, okay, you make a prototype so you can show it off and see what it is. And then you're like, okay, well, we need this many people to make it economically feasible to sell it at this price, right? Because there's a whole line of like, of where you'll make enough money, in there. And be like, okay, and then you start production. It's really smart on the business side. Now, what's really nice on the consumer side is that they can be like, okay, I want this thing. I'm willing to give you my $500. But if they don't get enough backers, then they don't actually lose that money. And that's good. Like, it's good that because like there's some projects out there that you put your money into and they might fail and you don't get anything out of it. Like the company just runs off with your money effectively. And they specifically said, at least in this article, that won't be the case.
Right. No, I mean, I get it. I do get that aspect of it. But I mean, let me ask you this. Does like $500 for a toy, I get it that it's going to be a big toy and it's going to look probably amazing. But like, does $500 sound to you like it's a reasonable cost for a toy?
So to me, no. But that's not who they're appealing with. And that's probably why they're having to go this route.
What single working mother for Christmas is going to work to come up with $500 to buy Jabba's sail barge to put under the Christmas tree? Or what family of four, is going to be able to do that for a single kid? Like, that may be a little too much of a stretch, but the collectors, the people that have disposable income, that are going to put it up on a shelf and never touch it, maybe never even take it out of the box because it'll be a collector's item, a one of a kind. And that I understand.
And that's exactly who this is for. And that's why they're going to put it up on a program like this, where it's like, hey, we don't know if this is a good idea. This isn't for everyone. Now, let me ask you this. You're a big Star Wars fan, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
How do you feel about Legos?
I love Legos.
How do you feel about Lego Death Stars?
If I had the money, I would love to buy one.
Now, do you know how much that is?
My guess is it's probably like $350-$400.
It is $499.95 on Amazon right now.
And all I can think of is in Spider-Man Homecoming, where his buddy drops that thing and it like shatters.
Well, you just put it back together. But I mean, still. What I'm saying is like, there are people out there that will spend this money. And I want to say, like, the thing said it's got till April 13th to get that 5,000 pre-orders. Right. Yeah. And I don't know how visible this thing is. And I think that's what killed. Like, I think if every major Star Wars fanatic out there knew about it, they could get 5,000 that would want this thing, right? Even though it's a little obscure.
You know, running the numbers, they're trying to crowdsource $2.5 million.
Well, but you got to also think, how much are they making on that? And I don't know the answer to it.
I don't know. So that's the other thing. Like, the other thing I look at is, you know, does that just cover the cost of making it, and then they're going to have the molds, and they're going to be able to run more of these and then actually sell them on their own without the backers? Or is this going to be, you know, for backers only? And what kind of profit margin are they making on that $2.5 million they're looking to raise?
Well, yeah, I mean, there's obviously things we don't know and won't know until it happens or whatever. But I think, you know, this right here is one thing with, like, okay, we're starting this program. Here's the thing we're going to start it with. Now, everyone else who wants to sell a toy this way, you've seen how it works. You've seen it actually in action. We're putting our money where our mouth is. Our mouth where our money is. We're putting something in the same place as something else.
Our mind on our money and our money on our mind. Yeah.
Yes.
I'm with you.
We're doing that, right? And so then other people be like, okay, we've seen how it works. We've seen this. This is exactly how it goes down. And then other people do that. And my thought is that the ones that have successful backings will most likely, well, I would say there will be at least a series of them that will also come out on retail.
Sure. At least that would make sense to me. Yes. I mean, if they went through all the work to make all the molds and all the, you know, whatever, I don't know why they wouldn't. I mean,
no, well, and I mean, it's all got to do with economy of scale and that initial investment and trying to get, I mean, the initial investment that companies go through to do anything. If it fails, I mean, you can only have so many failed projects before your company's sunk.
Right. I heard somewhere, and I don't remember where it was, that they were talking about, it was like a pharmaceutical company was saying that the first pill that they ever develop for, like, you know, any, like, whatever new drug for, like, a new disease or something, that it costs like $10 million to make that first pill. Because that's all the R&D, all the everything that's got to go into it, you know, the testings and the trials and whatnot. And then after that, you know, the price of the pills come way down. But
yes. Oh, yeah. I mean, exactly.
So, yeah, I get it. Anyway, I don't know. It's not for me. I would love to have that, but at that price point and doing it through a HasLab, their own version of Kickstarter, I think this is going to be one of those things where I'm just going to take a hard pass on it and then, you know, just say congrats to those that make it and that do it. But that's just me. Anyway, what else you got for me, Johnny?
So you're talking about Hasbro, and something else that Hasbro happens to make is other toys.
My Little Ponies? Are you a brony?
I am 100% not a brony. Okay. But now, man, I kind of wish I was. No, I collect Pez dispensers. We're cool. It's all good.
Yeah, we're good.
Yeah, so Hasbro makes Transformers.
Yep.
I grew up loving Transformers.
Oh, so good as a kid.
Now, I'm going to read the beginning of this here, and then I want to talk to you about some of these movies. But so last November, Hasbro announced a new deal with Paramount to create a range of movies based on the toy properties. Right? Obviously, there's been these movies. When is this? This is recently, right? Yeah. Okay. On top of that, the deal will see a further expansion of the Transformers movie universe, starting with this year's Bumblebee spinoff. But after that, the future of the Transformers saga could be up for some major changes. Now, how do you feel about the original Transformer movies? Like, I say the original, like the set that we've had in the last, 10 years or whatever it has been?
I enjoyed the first one because it was nostalgic enough for me to see Optimus Prime on screen and Bumblebee. And, you know, Megan Fox wasn't bad to look at. Sam Witwicky, played by Shia LaBeouf,
that dude is weird.
Yes, very much so. However, when the second movie came out, I remember going and seeing it in the theater, and I went, this doesn't have a lot for me going on other than kind of what the first movie had kind of going on. And then I think I saw the third movie in the theater, and that's where I stopped, because it was kind of diminishing returns. Like, I felt the quality of the movies, for me, was kind of dropping off. Like, there wasn't really a real pull. The storylines were not all that exciting. And I'm like, this is just a big Michael Bay, let's blow things up and sell popcorn type of movie. It's kind of the Fast and the Furious kind of thing, right? Like, we just continue to make these movies because they hit a certain demographic and they sell and they make a bunch of money. But really, the first one, in my opinion, was the best, and then they've gone downhill, and I think I stopped after the third.
So the question I have to ask, Spencer, is what is your issue with Ride or Die? I mean, I love the Fast and Furious movies. I understand they're not great, but I absolutely love them.
So here's the thing, though, and I was talking about this with, or maybe it's when Peter Christensen wrote in a few weeks ago. Like, the first one was really good. Second, third one kind of sucked. Then, like, the fourth and the fifth got better, and I think that's kind of where I stopped. I think I even own the sixth one, and I don't think I've seen it yet. But, like, they got better. Like, the second and third ones were just atrocious.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's, I mean.
Okay, so back to this Transformers thing, and I as we talked about earlier, I talked to Chelsea Capri quite a bit, and she's really loves Transformers.
Okay.
And so we almost had a friendship-ending conversation one day because I told her that I started watching the first Transformers movie, got about halfway through it, turned it off, and have never turned on a Transformers movie since.
Okay.
Now, here's the thing. Part of that is I just didn't think it was great.
Sure.
And it could have been my state of mind at the time. It could have been that I wasn't watching it with the right people, because, I mean, watching a movie with the right people can change everything.
Yes.
But there's one specific thing, and I'm loving the pictures from this article right here. But there's one specific thing that showed me that he was trying to ruin my childhood. And that's that Bumblebee was a Camaro.
Yep.
Bumblebee cannot be a Camaro. They call him Bumblebee because he's a Volkswagen Bug.
Right,
a
exactly.
Yellow Volkswagen Bug. So I heard a rumor or read somewhere or something, like there was some issue with using that car. Yeah. I don't know if that's true or not, but if that's the case, then you just don't make the movie. You don't have a character called Bumblebee and make him anything other than a Volkswagen Bug, unless you just want me to just look back at my childhood like everything's a lie.
I think that they couldn't get the rights to use the VW Bug, and then so they kind of said, well, we're kind of giving, we're giving it a facelift, kind of making it a little more modern, and so they made it a Camaro. Now, admittedly, that Camaro is a pretty cool looking Camaro, but I know what you're saying. It's not the same thing.
It ruins. Like, it literally, like, as soon as I saw that happen and realized what was going on, I was like, I'm done. Like, no, like, you cannot do this to me. I loved Transformers. I loved the cartoons, and you can't do this to me. So, that being said, I am open to checking this out. I assume he's still going to be a Camaro or something, although he looks really awesome in this.
Yeah.
But what's really cool in this article is it talks about, like, I guess they have a whole thing going through 2021 of different movies coming out, and they have so the Bumblebee movie is supposed to come out in December. What is Micronauts?
I don't know.
So Micronauts is coming out in 2020. G.I. Joe, I can't speak. G.I. Joe is supposed to come out in 2020, and I understand that G.I. Joe movies were not the greatest, but I still kind of really liked them because I love G.I. Joe so much, and no one in there was supposed to be a Volkswagen Bug and not one, so I'm good with that.
Right.
Dungeons and Dragons is going to have a movie in 2021, and the biggest problem I'm going to have with that is every player in that movie should be equipped with a pair of dice, and if they're not, it's going to kind of ruin it for me.
Johnny, I forgot to tell you, I played Dungeons and Dragons for the first time this last week.
Did you win?
Well, we achieved the objective. Okay, so I got on like this. There's this group online that play, and they play on this website called Roll20, which is a fairly big website for playing Dungeons and Dragons online. And I got in with this group of people that were kind of like shepherding new players through. And never having played it, even though I've been kind of reading the player's handbook and the Dungeon Master Guide and watching videos and listening to podcasts, because I'm really wanting to kind of get involved in this. But I got in on a game, and like we started at like 8:45 at night, and they kind of helped me like finish polishing off my character sheet, and then a few other people. And then we played, like, we ended like at 1:30 in the morning, and we had this great like little, just like a little one-shot campaign. So it was just like this like little one-shot. We were going to do it all in one evening. And I was a human paladin, and we ended up facing down this big black dragon at the end. And I got this hit on this dragon that was so freaking powerful that like I nearly killed it in a single blow. And then like we weren't doing a lot of damage, and I kind of missed on a few of my rolls. And then I got the killing shot on this thing. And so it was really cool because, like, you know, if you've never played Dungeons and Dragons, it's like, it's an opportunity to like play basically a tabletop version of, you know, any RPG video game you've ever played. But like you get to like cooperatively with the other players, like kind of determine kind of, you know, how the adventure is going to go. You can do things, and you can ask, you know, I want to look at this, or I want to talk to this person, I want to try to convince this person, or I want to jump up on stage and do a dance to entertain everyone that'll distract them while my party member goes and steals. And you kind of cooperatively tell a story, and the dungeon master kind of helps guide you through and make sure, you know, that you're kind of following the rules, and, you know, if you're trying to do something, if you can actually do that or not, and, you know, kind of shepherding the adventure along. I had so much fun doing that, Johnny. So much fun.
I've never played. I too have been listening to one Dungeons and Dragon podcast a lot, like binging my way through it. And I think I would like to try it sometime, but the key for me would have to be that I'd have to be playing with people that are okay with not bending the rules, but giving some liberties for humor purpose. Right. You know? Like, I want to be able to do ridiculous stuff. Like, I want to be able to just be goofy and have fun with it. I don't want someone that's like, I'm like, I pick up the sword and I throw it into the electric socket next to him and it falls and shocks the guy, and the guy's like, you can't do that. Like, I don't want that. No.
Right. No, the podcast I've listened to, and the DM that we were working with, like, he would just, like, the DM just kind of, if the DM's good, like, they'll just roll with it and they'll say, okay, well, that's going to be like, you know, an athletics check. And you'll say, okay, my athletics is this, and you'll have to roll and see if you can, you know, roll higher than what you want to do. And if you roll higher than it, then you would succeed in throwing the sword into the electrical outlet and shocking the guy next to him and, you know, making him fall down. But if you don't succeed, then basically says, well, you throw the knife, you know, you throw your sword towards it, but you miss it by about 3 feet, and, you know, you embed your sword into the thing, and now you've alerted the goblins to your presence, and now they turn and attack you.
Oh,
it's like,
stupid goblins.
And they'll just kind of like roll with it. Like, so I think being goofy and fun is like a big part of that. Like, we had a guy that was like, every opportunity he was trying to steal from everyone and anything. Like, we're like, oh, there's a big pile of gold. And so like the dragon's kind of guarding the gold, and like he slides around behind the dragon and basically tries to steal like gold off the pile. And like, and then like it gets the dragon's attention. Like, he was the whole night, and he wasn't even a thief. Like, his class wasn't thief, but he was just trying to steal right and left. And he just had some miserable rolls. Anyway, it's a little side tangent, but it was a lot of fun. I totally forgot to tell you about that. Anyway,
that's exciting, actually.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I'll have to talk about it more later. So right now the Olympics are going on, right? Have you been watching the Olympics? Have you been following this at all?
I put on some for the kids. We saw like the long jump, the skiing long jump, which is incredibly boring and yet somehow super thrilling at the same time.
Right.
We watched some of the luge, some of the bobsled. Did not see John Candy in any of that. A little disappointing.
Right.
We saw it's something like the speed skate. Okay, so I know where you're going with this, but have you seen the speed skating where they have multiple people on a team? And so the people who are not skating are like going around in a circle in the middle, and then they like tag by pushing off on each other?
Yeah, it's weird, right?
What is that?
It's so weird. I love it though.
Yeah, we've been watch some of that stuff, yeah.
We've been watching Olympics like every night, and like my wife and her sister, this was a few nights back, maybe like a week ago, like right towards the beginning of the games, there was a figure skater where her dress strap like broke like around her neck, and it was kind of like opening up a little bit, and you could tell she was trying to hold it. And then like
while skating?
While skating. And then like just the other night, like this happened to like a French couple, and like her dress popped open, and she full on had like a wardrobe malfunction, and like it was caught on camera. And like when like the IOC had their replay and like they were kind of replaying, they're like, yeah, this is popped, da, 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 and they're like kind of like zooming in. Like they caught on camera very distinctly her without part of her top covering her that should be covered on live television. It was very interesting to say the least. And my wife and I were like, oh, don't do that. You know, who's, you know, in the booth right now? Maybe you like don't focus in on that, but anyway, the poor, like, you know, I was like, I felt so bad for her. But like the French skater, like the next day, she was like, well, I mean, I wish it wouldn't have happened, but it happened. So, you know, let's just move on. And it was like, just like totally like, you know, like I'm embarrassed by it, but I'm going to kind of roll with it. Let's not make a thing of it.
Oh, that's bad, but funny.
So like Olympics has been great. Like we've been watching it every night, but I'm always interested in the idea of like the curling team because I'm like, I could do that. I could go to a curling club and like learn how to play and then like try to qualify. And I love the idea that I could say like I'm an Olympic hopeful and like go to like Olympic tryouts for curling. And so apparently I'm not the only one that has like that sort of thought. Like, how can I kind of, you know, fudge my way into the Olympics and become an Olympic athlete? And there is a woman. She's a freestyle skier. Her name is Elizabeth Swanee. And out of all the athletes that are there, how to put this? She's a skier and she skis in the half pipe. And she basically...
I love how you're like trying to figure out how to word this one.
Well, because it's so hard. Basically what she did is that she has, she's an American, or lives in America, and has started freestyle skiing since like 2013. But her mother was like a native Venezuelan. So like she basically was going to, she initially competed for Venezuela. Then she switched her allegiance to Hungary because of her grandparents. And the thing is, she cannot do a single trick. Not a single trick. But what she realized was all she had to do to qualify for the Olympics was to go and you had to be within like the top 30 at a few World Cup skiing events. And so what she would do was she would find a sponsored skiing event by I think it's like the FIS, which is like the kind of like the governing body in this. And so she went to this skiing event in December in China, which was not a very top tier event because all the top tier skiers were at this big event in Colorado. And she finished 13th out of 15th. And basically she just like goes up the half pipe, does like this little weak like 180 turn and then goes back down and goes up the other side and does this little weak 180 and goes like she is like it is the worst thing. But here's the thing. She realized that if she just shows up, stays up on her skis, if a few people like crash, you know, trying to throw some of these big aerial maneuvers, that she's going to place. And so she ended up finishing, you know, in the top 30 at a few of these, you know, like, you know, basically, you know, ski federation sponsored events. And so she ended up qualifying to go to the Olympics in Pyeongchang. And basically it is the most ugliest looking thing. I'm sorry. I try not to be negative, but it's like the most ugliest looking thing. And she's an Olympic athlete. And technically,
is that the word you want to use?
Well, I mean, I'm going to because she is classified as an Olympic athlete. She's in the Olympic Village and she is skiing. And the sad thing is, she's probably not going to finish last because there's probably going to be someone that's going to end up getting worse scores than her because they're going to throw these great tricks and then they're going to crash. But, you know, you can flub your way into it, but they have said that they're going to change rules and they're going to make it tighter so that you actually have to be, you know, there's some like degree level that you have to, you know, I don't know, attain or be able to show some proficiency in a number of things. So like this is going to be changed. So anyone that's listening to this podcast now, don't get the idea that you're going to go and, you know, fake your way into it. If you're going to try to fake your way into the Olympics, get into curling. I'm telling you, that's the way to go.
So, you know, you sent me the show notes with all these different articles and stuff, and I clicked on this one and I opened it up, and like when you open the article, it's this giant GIF. It says, which if you watch it, you think it's just like a video, but no, it's a GIF of her going side to side a number of times. And It is the most pathetic thing. No, don't get me wrong. Like, she could probably do more than I can. I probably wouldn't even be able to do that. But when you said she goes up in 180s and comes back, no. She goes up in like 20s or something, right? Like
I said it's a weak 180. It's very lame.
Like, she goes up, she gets, I don't know, 6 inches of air, maybe, and I'm talking literally maybe 6 inches of air, and then comes back down and goes up the other side, and she's just cruising down. It's like, and she's in her early 30s or whatever, but it kind of looks like an old granny just going down the easy slope. I mean,
yeah.
Oh man, kudos to her. She won. Like, she won. She didn't deserve to be there, but she got there, so she wins.
Yeah, it's yeah. Anyway, it's interesting to say the least. What else you got for me, Johnny?
So we were talking about movies earlier, and movies that I've tried to see or wanted to like and not fallen, but now have a reason to maybe like them, right? Because the whole Hasbro thing, they're about possibly rebooting the Transformers. Who knows? Maybe we'll get the right car one day. Anyway.
Or Megan Fox will come back. Who knows?
Sure. She's, I was about to say she's cool, but she's not. She's just attractive. So the X-Men, I guess there was talk at one point of having X-Men spinoff of Gambit.
Yeah, it's been a development hell for a long time.
Here's the thing. I've watched the first, I don't know how many X-Men movies. I did see Logan. I thought Logan was pretty good.
Yep.
I really enjoyed some of the earlier X-Men movies. I'm not a huge X-Men fan. I like, a buddy of mine is a comic book artist. He's actually a middle school art teacher, but he's also a comic book artist on the side. And he went to a school, and it's like the guy who, like, I guess originally was doing the X-Men, like his school named after him, and his son still draw the X-Men.
Yeah, his name is Xavier. Mm-hmm.
No, not the guy who made the school, the artist for the comic book. So anyways, like, this guy is like art training from these guys. It was a huge X-Men fan, so I always knew a lot about the X-Men and whatever else through him. And always, by far, my favorite X-Men was always Gambit.
Gambit's cool.
He doesn't care. He's not like, so when you look at the different X-Men, I mean, you have Cyclops, and he just comes across as like a whiny punk most of the time. And so you're like, oh, I don't want to support that guy. I mean, what, you got one eye? I mean, who does anything with one eye? And he's a whiny punk? No.
And he loses his girl to Wolverine.
Yeah. Who wants to lose their girl to Wolverine? It's Hugh Jackman.
Right.
Little Scrubs reference there. But Gambit always, like, something about him, like the Cajunness, and I'm in Cajun territories at half a mile down the road from me, effectively.
Sure.
And then he throws the cards, and he was just always super cool. So if they actually do this, like if this actually happens, I'll be very excited. I will go see this one.
I want to see it. I'm not holding my breath because I know they've lost like 3 directors, and it keeps getting pushed back. It really has been in development hell for a long time. It's one of those things where I'll believe that it's actually happening when I see like promotional materials, like saying like, hey, coming out, this spring, and they show like a trailer for it, something like that.
Well, this is saying next year. So, I mean, it's got a road to go.
And I think next year it'll say in a year from now. That's just what I'm guessing though. But we'll see. I mean, whatever. Speaking of movies, like I said, I saw Black Panther over the weekend. Here's something though that I wasn't anticipating, and this is like, I don't know, this is where like things get like really dumb. There have been trolls that have been going online and posting pictures saying they've been assaulted at Black Panther showings, basically saying like, I'm white and I was assaulted by black people because I was told that this movie isn't for me. And like the LAPD has said like, there hasn't been a single incident of any violence reported in a movie theater. This movie is I saw the movie. It's for all people to see. Just because it has a black cast and it's predominantly featured in Africa, there's no reason why anyone of any race or nationality couldn't go and enjoy this movie. It is a great movie. But the idea that people are just so like ridiculous, they're like, we need to fake people out. We need to, make people believe that, people are being violent over this movie and like trying to like, I don't know, incite like racial hatred or something. It's just totally stupid in my opinion. Like it got so bad that like Snopes has already debunked this thing like that quickly. It's not happening. Go see this movie. Don't worry about being beaten up because you are not black for going to see this. That's ridiculous. It's dumb, but this is the internet, and don't believe everything you read on the internet. That's all I'm saying.
So here's the one thing I goes through my head with all this is I really want to know the intent of these people. If they are doing it in a way to spread racial hatred, then that's terrible, right? Like anything with racial hatred on any side is terrible, right? I mean, it just is. If they're doing it as like a ridiculous joke, it's kind of funny.
Yeah.
Like,
I don't think it's a ridiculous joke. I think it's the former you said.
Yeah, and you're probably right, and that really sucks.
Yeah.
And I mean, people, all this like racial stuff or whatever, people can be like, oh, we gotta do this to stop it. You can change some people's mind here and there. It's almost always good. I mean, look at where I live and where I used to recruit. And like I used to recruit way out in the country in Texas where it's just not good for certain people to go. And then there's also places where me being a white guy, it wasn't safe for me to go. So the racial stuff's always going to be there. But when I first read this, the first thing that popped into my mind is The Onion had to be behind it. And I love The Onion. The Onion is one of my favorite publications ever. But like they would do something like this, and I've seen it recently where they've come up to a line and taken one step past that line where you're like, right. Oh man. But it's just what it sounds like is that it's like a goofy thing. But you're right. I mean, you're right. I would put my money that you're right. That is a bunch of jerks being racist bastards and whatever else,
which is very unfortunate. Like we have real problems with race in this country. Let's not make things, that don't actually exist, be a thing. Let's not make things more difficult. I'm never going to support people that are trying to do that. It's just unfortunate, but the movie's like doing like blockbuster business, like 202 million opening weekend. So, good for them.
Do you ever stop and think? And
no, never.
Yeah, well, obviously. So like two thoughts here. One, let's stop making things about race when they shouldn't be, right? This movie's not about race. It just happens to be about a Black Panther guy, right?
Yep.
Not about race. But two, do you ever stop and think when you make comments like, man, this movie's doing blockbusters, and then be like, oh man, Blockbuster went out of business.
No, I don't put that together because, I think, if you say something's a blockbuster, type movie, it means it's a big movie. It's doing really, really well. Blockbuster took their name, after that name had been, or that term had been used to sell DVD rentals or VHS rentals back in the day.
All I'm saying is maybe we need a new term.
So we're like, man, this business is doing Netflix.
Heck yeah, man. They're not out of business yet.
It's in 1 million homes everywhere.
Give it time.
What else you got for me, Johnny? You got anything else? You tapped? What do you got?
I do have one more thing, and you build these notes. You know what I'm about to say, and I'm actually curious to why you put this one in here, right? And that's kind of why I wanted to make sure we did bring this one up. But yeah, PlayStation VR. So you have a PS4?
Yep, I'm PS4.
Okay, so I have a PS4 also, and I have put some thought into PSVR because like you'll catch it at times when it's down to like $200, and even if I'm not playing a VR game, you can basically put that thing on and it's like you're playing a game at a movie theater. Like you can make it look like the TV screen is this giant screen in front of you. So I've considered this, but with all the wires and everything like that, I haven't done it. But you have it here. So the PSVR Doom bundle is now on sale for $250.
Right. That's
so I'm
real
trying
low.
It is, but I mean, this just comes with the headset and the game, right? Because for the full thing, you need the camera, you need the Move controllers and all that stuff, and you just don't find those quite that cheap.
Let's see here.
Let me ask you this. You obviously would like to have PSVR, otherwise you would not have even thrown this in here anyway. What has stopped you, or what is driving you towards wanting it?
I don't know that I actually want it. I was interested in the fact that the price is dropping again, and that that it's getting cheap. Like the barrier to entry on the PSVR is lower than it's ever been, which for me speaks more to I think what PlayStation's probably looking to do is that they're wanting to drop that barrier to entry, get more people into their VR, because I think they're gonna double down and like put more money into it, to have more games developed for it, and then when the PS5 comes out, they're gonna have some like even better version of their VR than they have right now. Maybe it'll be all wireless, and so you won't have the wires you actually have to have connected or whatever. But it's really like one of the most affordable ways to get into VR. Like if you were going to do like the HoloLens or some of that other stuff, it's Morpheus, all that whatever. It's a lot more expensive, but the PSVR is pretty cheap now. Like that's what I guess amazes me more than anything.
Have you ever messed with it? Have you ever messed with VR at all?
I messed with VR back in the 90s when it was kind of a thing.
The Virtual Boy doesn't count.
No. I'm actually talking about like going to like a Dave & Buster's and putting on like the goggles and like the gloves and whatnot. But no, I have not done PSVR or any of the others.
So we have a Microsoft store in our mall, and I don't go up to the mall very often. But I was up there and I was walking through, and they had the girl out there with they call it mixed reality is what these ones are called. So
like augmented reality.
Well, it's not. So the Microsoft HoloLens is augmented reality. That's where you're seeing everything around you, but you're seeing stuff on top of that.
Right.
Mixed reality, I do not know what the difference between that and virtual reality is. Okay. I have absolutely no idea. But they
Marketing
had this thing
buzzwords,
there. Maybe. But there's a number of companies that are making these. I mean, Dell, I think, is making one. Lenovo and all these different computer companies are making one. And the programming for it is all already within Windows 10. Right? Or the latest updated Windows 10 or whatever. And it wasn't that expensive. Like they're having some sale for Black Friday or whatever. I think it's around that time. And you could actually get it for $250 for this thing. And then you buy the games through the Windows Store or other places. So I tried it out. In the middle of the mall, they have this little like tent thing set up. Everyone's walking around me. It's, shopping time for everyone. And there I am with this thing on. And I'm like playing this like this Halo type game. And I'm like trying to figure out where the lady is so I can pretend like I'm shooting her. So everyone walking by is seeing me like shoot this lady and stuff. And it was cool. I mean, it wasn't the greatest thing in the world. And the movement is extremely, like you don't feel like you're walking. You feel like you're pointing to a space and like teleporting to it. But I guess the reason I bring this up is I think all in all, VR will start becoming less expensive. And if they can do that, it'll become a big thing. And if they can't, and if they can't get the development for it, it's gonna fall out.
Yeah, I look at it with them getting cheaper. I think they're gonna be doubling down and putting a lot more money into it. And I've heard good things from the people that have played it that I've talked to. But just for me, it's like, I don't know if that's something that A, I really want to do, or B, I want to invest money on. But when like the price starts coming down and getting like low, like real low, like $250, and it comes with a game, like that's pretty low. And then it's almost like, well, it's still more than I would want to pay, but if they start coming out with some, like if the next Last of Us game comes out and it can be played in VR.
How many people would die in real life?
Right? I'm telling you though, like that's one of the things, like if that were a thing, I may jump on it. And I may be kicking myself in the butt for not getting it for $250 now when they're like, well, we're going to bundle it with the game, but it's now $300. It's normally like $300 or $350 or something. You know what I'm saying?
If the next Last of Us came out in VR, it would be tough not to, because I played Resident Evil 7. And I loved the game. It was insanely scary. One of the scariest things I've played, and I can't tell you how long. But if I could have played that in VR,
right?
Oh, we might not be having this conversation right now. That's all I'm saying.
Right. You might have been dead already. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, let's get off something that could possibly kill us to something we probably enjoy. So here's something I found really interesting. I love baseball, You and I have talked about it. You're wearing an Astros hat right now.
Oh, the Astros. Can you tell me? I mean, did anything significant happen with them recently? I mean,
no. The world baseball, the world pretty much ended after the Cubs won the 2016 World Series. Everything after that just doesn't exist. Sorry.
I mean, it's sad that they had to turn over that title effectively to my Houston Astros for the first time ever. We
still won a title for our first time, in like 108 freaking years. So, yeah, we didn't go back to back. That's okay. No one was really like, anyone from Chicago, no one was thinking we were going to win it in the first place. So going back to back, that's like, okay, come on. That's just crazy wishful thinking. That's like Ronnie Woo-Woo type of thinking. And only those from Chicago really probably know Ronnie Woo-Woo. Anyway.
I'm glad you said that because I have a blank look on my face.
There's a fan, his name is Ronnie Woo-Woo. He actually has a real name, but he just he
actually has a real name.
Yeah, he does. But he goes to Cubs games and he goes, Cubs, woo, Cubs, woo, Cubs, woo, Cubs.
The whole time?
Woo. The whole time. And so he's kind of like a minor celebrity kind of in the Chicago area. But when he's in your section for an entire Cubs game, ooh, Ronnie Woo-Woo, you're getting a little grating on the nerves. But when you see him out front of the stadium and whatnot, and he's just a normal, nice guy, and anyway, but it gets a little old if you're right next to him. Anyway, so here's the thing. I love watching baseball. I love watching it in person. I love watching it on TV. However, the last few years, I think anyone that watches Major League Baseball will say the game has gotten a little longer. It's taken a little bit longer to get through these games. It seems like we're getting a lot more pitcher changes and, trips to the mound. And so Major League Baseball is now saying that this is, basically for TV. They're not doing this. They're not making this rule for the game itself, but basically to kind of help out with the TV viewership and, contracts, with, Fox and, TBS and all the others, that they're making a rule designed to help speed up the pace of the game, which is going to include limiting visits to the pitcher's mound and shaving off time between innings. So basically they'll cut down, the amount of time in between innings, because they said that last season, the average length of a 9-inning game was 3 hours, 5 minutes, and 11 seconds. Now, that doesn't seem like a lot. I'm usually locked in for a 3 hour. I'm preparing for a 3 hour ordeal if I'm going to watch a game that goes 9 innings. But it's continuing. It's like I guess the length of the games for the last few years have grown by more than 4 minutes year after year after year. And so they're seeing that it's starting, 3 years ago, it was 12 minutes, shorter. And so it's growing, and it's just for unnecessary trips to the mound. So they're going to come out with a rule to basically kind of, break that down and, keep the game a little more fast paced. What do you think about that?
So I have some bitternesses when it comes to baseball. I mean, baseball is by far my favorite sport. It's my favorite sport to go see. I love the Astros. I've been going to see them since I was a kid. Houston did a thing a number of years back where it used to be you could just have regular television and catch the Astros games.
Right.
And they did a deal with Comcast where it was a specific channel and you had to have that specific channel.
Comcast Sportsnet?
It's something like
that. Yeah.
And it only lasted a few years, and then they moved over to, I think, FS1 or something like that. But it's not a channel you get unless you have a sports package with your cable. And up until recently, I didn't have cable at all. Right?
Gotcha. Yep.
So for me, seeing the games on TV has been, not possible really. And then, it's hard to get my kids to sit through it and whatever else. So, I mean, honestly, doing this, it sounds like one of those things where you get these TV people look, we can make more money if we do it this way. And this seems like there's probably some non-fan related money reason involved with what they're doing. I could be wrong. I could just be cynical. Because, I mean, my wife and I love baseball. We could both go sit there and sit through a whole game and have fun. Our kids wouldn't make it because they'd get bored. But the part they're getting bored at is not just because of the extra mound visits and not just because of how long it is between innings. I don't think that's what's killing them. Now, on top of that, though, is that they've been changing things and making rules and whatever in baseball that have just been making me mad. There's the instant replay for the home runs.
Yep.
And I get it. but there's something about the purity of baseball and having it all rely on what they see, you know?
Right. That's why we have refs and not, video camera review for everything.
Well, yeah, and they're talking about that, though. They're talking about for strikes and balls, having a camera back there call the strikes and balls. No, have the umpire do that, and that's it.
Yeah, that's his job.
And also, the whole, I think it was maybe this last season, they made it so that you could just say, walk the guy, and you didn't actually have to do the pitch out.
Right.
And yeah, that speeds things up, but it also, you never know that one game that could be changed by a wild pitch on a pitch out.
Right, exactly.
And so it's just, as someone who loves baseball and would love to go back in time to the 20s and sit in Wrigley Field with my weird beat up baseball glove, which by the way, Wrigley Field's an amazing place. Absolutely love it there. I've been there once.
It is a beautiful place.
So awesome.
Oh.
But with my old baseball glove, my beat up baseball hat as a kid, watching, whoever, I don't know who was playing at that moment, but that right there is purity to me. And it just seems like every little step they take. Now, granted, I think they abuse some of the stuff. I think they abuse some of these mound visits, and I think it kind of takes away from it too a little bit. Back in the day when pitchers pitched every other game, they pitched the entire game and whatever.
Right. Well, they'll use it to slow down the game, to slow down the momentum of the other team, and I get it, it's a strategy, right? I mean, because it is a game and it's a big business, and you're trying to make money. But I mean, the purity of it, though, it feels a little less pure when you're okay, this is just a mound visit because we're starting to clobber the pitcher. They're not going to pull him yet, but they want to, calm down and try to cool off the bats of our team. I get that. Yeah. I don't like it either.
Yeah, so I can see that. I can see if it's kind of they're already abusing the system. Let's do this to stop them from abusing it. I'm all down for that. But quit making these other changes in baseball. Make baseball great again.
Make baseball great again. Well, it's interesting. So here's some of the changes. Normally a commercial break for a nationally televised game is 2 minutes and 25 seconds. That's now going to be down to 2:05. And then in the big games, like the tiebreaker games or postseason games, they're going to bring it down from 2:55, I think, to 2:25. So where it is for normal games. And then I guess the umpires, under the new guidelines, with 25 seconds left of the commercial break, the umpire will signal the pitcher to complete his final warm-up. At 20 seconds, the batter is announced and must leave the on-deck circle, and the batter walk-up music shall begin, and the pitcher shall complete the last warm-up pitch. And at 0 seconds, the pitcher must begin motion to deliver the first pitch. And so, and there's also something else I saw somewhere that was saying the pitcher cannot begin his motion for the first pitch more than 5 seconds prior to the end of an inning break or pitching change, so that television is ensured to be back from the commercial break. Because I must admit, I do hate when I'm watching a game at home and they're we come back from a commercial break and the count's already 2-2, and you're like, whoa, what just happened? That I do not like. So they're changing that, and then obviously they're going to limit the pitcher mound visits to 6 per game, an additional non-pitching change visit per inning in extra innings. So basically, you can only go to the mound 6 times during a game, and then if it's extra innings, you could go an extra time per inning.
But also, if you're going 6 times in a game, you should not be going 6 times in a game, unless the game is going really bad.
Well, think about it, though. Think about it like this. If your starting pitcher's out there and maybe he's getting batted around a little bit, you might go out there, try to calm him down, make sure he's getting all the signals. That's 1. You come back, right? Then you're going to go to pull him. That's 2. So then you get a reliever. And let's say your pitcher gets pulled in the 4th. You're going to have to burn through maybe 2, maybe 3 middle relievers before you can then put your closer in. So if you went twice during the starter and then you had to go and, pull out 3 middle inning relievers and then get your closer guy in, you could be up against that 6 fairly easy.
Well, but they're just going to find ways around that somewhat. So my grandfather, in his younger years would coach Little League Baseball, and they had the same rule with the MLB that the second time a coach goes to the mound, right, the pitcher has to come off.
Ah, yeah.
Right, they can only go up there the second time the pitcher's done. So what my grandfather would do would have the pitcher come to him. And the pitcher
Oh, yeah.
would walk off the mound and come over to my grandfather, and he would talk to him and send him back to the mound. And
Okay,
it went
smart.
past the rules. So what they could easily do is be like, okay, the first time they go out there and calm him down, then after that they're like, they just look at the pitcher and just give him the you're done signal, and the new guy walks out and the pitcher comes off. They don't have to go out there and burn that visit. So, I mean, I still think 6 times is pretty. Unless you have a pitcher or unless you have a game that's just going super bad, 6 times is a lot to go out to the mound.
Or maybe the first base coach, or not the first base coach, but like the third base coach or something will get the signal from the manager, and he'll go over and talk to the catcher, and then the catcher will go out to the mound and talk to the pitcher.
And it makes me wonder. Well, one, it makes me wonder how many listeners you're losing with the Fort of Nerditude talking about sports. Right. But like, there's a lot of times throughout the game when the catcher goes out and talks, and so the catcher will usually go out and talk to the pitcher. Usually,
Right.
the second baseman or the shortstop, some major team player will come in to the talk too, right? Like, will they start limiting that because that takes up more time than most of the time than the coach going out there?
All I know is what I saw, that MLB is going to be working with the TV to cut things down and make it go a little faster so that we can televise these games and, try to cut down on some time. I think it's a good move to try to shorten up the game a little bit, because it does get a little long when you're like, all right, we're like at 3.5 hours, and, this it's just because we've had a few long innings, but it's still only going to be a 9-inning game. So I'm okay with that. These aren't moves, I think, that break the game. They just help speed it up a little bit. And I'm fine because there are a few pitchers that take way too long. But
we like to call them belly itchers.
Yes, they're gonna take their time, and it's like, and they'll get to you when they want to. And then you got guys like John Lester, who's just gonna he wants to get on there and he wants to start throwing heat right away and doesn't want to wait. And I like those guys too. But anyway, that's all I had in Rebel Intelligence to round things off. Let me ask you a question, Johnny. Last week we talked about twist endings in video games and TV shows and movies, and our question of the week was, what is like one of your best twist endings for you, like something that gripped you or that got you? And so I'm gonna ask you, like, your best twist ending, like on a TV show, movie, video game. What would you say?
So I think you're going to know some of this because I was literally messaging you as I was hearing this.
Right.
So I have to. Okay, so here's my problem with movies is that, like, when you think of the 2 movies with the biggest twist endings, right? You're thinking of Fight Club and The Sixth Sense. Both of these movies were ruined for me on accident. Ooh. With me literally walking by, hearing a part of a conversation that I had like, they didn't say the name of the movie or whatever. Like, I just walked by a table and they're like, the guy dies at the end. Or the guy's been dead the whole time. Like, that's all I hear, right? And I would start watching the movie and instantly remember that conversation somehow and be this is what those people were talking about. So both those movies got ruined for me in that way. Now, granted, I still loved them both.
So you're going to say Unbreakable then? Yeah.
Yeah. That being said, anything else that M. Night Shyamalan has ever made can just go straight into a garbage can. I hated Unbreakable. My wife and I still argue about this because she loves a number of his movies. I hated Unbreakable. I hated Signs. That was the dumbest twist I've ever seen.
Yeah. See, I loved Unbreakable, but I'm with you on Signs. It was like, so they're spoilers. Let me just put that there.
Don't go see it.
Yeah. So water kills them, and they went to a planet that's what, like 75% water, 80% water.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Makes total sense. I thought The Village was really good until the twist happened.
Yeah, then you're like,
right?
Oh, I hate this. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm like, oh, this is stupid. But one thing you talked about, and you kind of broke down the story of it during the game, or during the show, is BioShock Infinite.
Oh, yes.
Now, that was the one I started with. I started with Infinite. I later went back and played the original BioShock. I'm going to play 2 at some point. And the twist in the first BioShock was okay. But, oh, man, BioShock Infinite, that game. So, we're talking about racial and all that stuff earlier. That game punches you in the face with that early. Like, you end up in this town. You're like, this is cool. It's like horses. They're all mechanical, but it's like old-timey. And everyone wears all the old-timey clothes. And it's beautiful and it's wonderful and everyone's
kind
happy.
Kind of steampunky, sort of.
Yeah. It's like steampunk if you wanted to make it a little bit more realistic to like the 1800s.
Right.
Right.
Yep.
Even to the point where you have to throw a stone at a black couple, or no, like a white guy that's with a black woman or something like that.
Right.
And so like first of all, you're playing along, it's beautiful, and then there's that twist, right? But that twist ending, hit me so hard. Like I'm playing that, I'm just like, this is the greatest thing ever. So hands down, BioShock Infinite, favorite twist ending, I think.
Yeah, I'm with you as far as like. I mean, there's been some great, like, Empire Strikes Back, Luke, I Am Your Father. A great twist ending there because it changes the whole tone of the whole series and what's to come. So, like, there's been some great things, but, like, man, yeah, BioShock Infinite still to this day. I actually didn't want to play that game originally. I had no interest in playing that game. My wife listened to a Nerdist podcast that had Ken Levine, the creator of the game on.
Yeah.
And he was talking about BioShock Infinite, and she heard this, and she's like, we got to go get this. I'm like, what? Really? You want me to buy it? And she's like, yes, we got to get this. And so she made me go out and buy it, and she watched me play through the entire, like, I couldn't play it without her. She made me play the game while she was watch the whole thing. And then when it was over, we were like, what the heck just happened? And we were trying to figure it out. And like I said last week, I went and found like this, I can't remember what it was, like a 30-minute or 45-minute like breakdown of the ending, just so we understood what had happened and like grasped everything, because you get a lot of info thrown at you like right at the very end of the game, and all of a sudden you're like, wait, what now? What happened? I chose what, and this became what, and I could have been Comstock, and what? I loved that game though.
Oh, it's so good. And
loved that
ending. I'm not like a first-person shooter type guy or anything. But oh man, that game, it almost gives you the feels. Almost.
It hits you. It hits you a couple times.
Oh yeah.
So let's go over to Twitter and let's see what some of our super friends said. The first one up, Adam Leonard at The Art of Adam L says, we have to go back. Says, from the Lost Season 3 finale, blew my mind and upended the trajectory of the rest of the series. It's a perfect example of why that show is the greatest in television history.
Okay, I have to argue one thing against that last statement. I watched all Lost. I think I started when season 2 or 3 was happening, and like I binged it and then watched it as it was coming out. It went through a couple seasons that were just bad. Like,
yeah, there was a couple down seasons. Admittedly.
Yeah, like, and not just downs, like bad seasons. And I would never give a show, and Adam, come at me. I would never call a show the greatest ever when it has any seasons in there that are just that bad. But otherwise, I don't know. I swear the guy was on crack and he was writing the thing.
Here's the thing though. It's a J.J. Abrams thing. So like, with J.J. Abrams, especially with television, he starts a show, he's heavily involved for the first couple seasons, and then he leaves. Because he did this with Alias. Like, he did Alias. He did like, I think the first 3 seasons of Alias. And then
they're so good.
And then he left to come do Lost. And then he did Lost, and he did the first few seasons of Lost. Then he left to go start the Star Trek reboot franchise in movies, and did that. And so, like, he does this, like, that's just kind of him.
Did you watch all of Alias?
I think I finished it out, because this is a long time ago. The first few seasons were good, and then I remember like it was like maybe season 4. It wasn't great, and then I think I got like
the bad guys and good guys. You couldn't figure out who was who or who was working for who anymore.
Right, and then I think the last season I maybe got halfway through it, and it was so ludicrous and ridiculous. I was just like, I'm done. I'm like, this doesn't make any sense, and I wasn't enjoying it anymore, and so I stopped.
Yeah, no, that's bad.
But here's the thing with Lost though. Even though like it did have a couple seasons that weren't great, admittedly, it did finish strong. Like when you get into like the ending and you like Jacob and the smoke monster, and you finally start getting all that kind of info, like it makes you like start looking back at the whole series and like almost reconsidering like what was really going on or what really was taking place that you're just now getting kind of caught up with and figuring out. I loved that because it made me sit back and reevaluate what I'd watched, and it made me want to go back and like re-look at stuff. And I think that's always a hallmark of some good storytelling, where they can find a way to twist things that doesn't change what had happened before, but it makes you go back and look at it with a different kind of critical eye.
So my last thing here on Lost is during the first and second season, from what I understand, I lived about an hour away from where they were filming.
Really? Well, when you were in
had
Hawaii?
no idea. Yeah.
Nice.
Had no idea.
Over on Twitter, Delvin Cox at Delvin_Cox says, one of my favorite movie plot twists is the one in Winter Soldier when Cap finds out that S.H.I.E.L.D. has been fully infiltrated by Hydra. It was also cool because it affected Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. in such a cool way. Now, I loved Winter Soldier. I don't remember thinking that like the plot twist maybe of Hydra being involved was like, well, I don't know. Maybe it was. Maybe I'm trying to think back like how I originally would have felt because I've seen that movie a few times now. It was a good plot twist. I mean, because you kind of have that whole idea, and then of course if you read the comics, like at some point, like Captain America turns out to have been part of Hydra all along, and it's like this whole story run. It doesn't make any sense to me, and they're gonna have some way of explaining it, but it's like, okay, whatever. But in the comics, they switch things up and they change things all the time to keep things exciting and entertaining. Paul Calicote at pcalico84 says, I'm going to say recently Spider-Man Homecoming, when Liz's dad answers the door, my jaw dropped. And they also says The Abyss, when it turned out to be aliens. Oh man.
Can I make a confession to you real quick?
Don't say you haven't seen Spider-Man Homecoming. Don't say it, Johnny.
I want to, and it hasn't happened. I don't know why it hasn't happened. It needs to get to Netflix so it can happen.
Dude,
we don't get to see many movies because my kids, like I don't like doing the whole babysit. Nothing against babysitters. I just don't. Dealing with it.
And it also gets expensive, right?
Yeah, and so I didn't catch it in the theaters because we kept meaning to, and stuff kept getting in the way, and then it just hasn't happened yet, and I really want to see it. It just hasn't happened yet. And I feel really terrible. I think I should just hit the log off on our call right now.
No, dude,
my head in.
See it as soon as you can because it is an excellent movie.
Yeah.
And now we just told you a spoiler for the movie.
That's okay.
It's not going to be as impact because it is like a gut punch moment when all of a sudden you're like, oh my, and you see the look on Peter Parker's face when he realizes what he's stepping into, and like it's so beautifully acted. Like you really feel that emotion. I remember going, oh, I had that intake of breath. I was like, oh crap, it just got real. Anyway, thanks, Paul. Grouchium Verge Buster Surge at backlog_blues. Just Grouchy Surge. We're going to keep it with Grouchy Surge here. He says, comic book, The Walking Dead and the Glenn incident. Okay, I know what you're talking about, and I would say that's a big twist. He says, and Death of the Family, where Joker can, but doesn't kill Batman because they need each other. And then he says, video game, the end of the Batman Arkham City blew me away. And then he says, for movies, the end of Usual Suspects caught me off guard and made me rewatch.
That is another movie that I heard someone make a comment, because I didn't see Usual Suspects till years after it came out, right?
Okay, yep.
And I heard someone make a comment sometime. They didn't say the name of the movie. I just, for whatever reason, it stuck in my head, and I started watching the movie, and I'm like, this is what that person was talking about. Right. Like some random thing where I walked past someone, and it didn't say it ruined the movie. I still love the movie.
Yeah.
But
Skinny Matt at Skinny Matt K says, worst, Sixth Sense. I called it early in the movie. And I agree. I saw that coming in the movie too.
But but the movie was good.
The movie was good. But if you see the twist coming way ahead of time, though, it does kind of spoil it when it happens. He says, also, Signs was bad. Why would aliens invade a world that is mostly water when it kills them? Hey, exactly right.
If he made that comment to M. Night Shyamalan, he'd be like, of course.
Right.
Like, that's my point.
Around here, we call him M. Night Shyamalama Ding Dong.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Yeah. He says, best, Psycho. He says, although it's cliche now, that moment when you see Norman's mom as a mummified corpse.
So creepy.
Yeah, absolutely creepy. Well, Super Friends, thank you so much for, shouting out your answers and getting back to us this week. Once again, every week you can answer our questions. You can do it long form through email, which is forwardofnerd@gmail.com. Facebook, facebook.com/forwardofnerd, @forwardofnerd on Twitter, or our phone number, which is 801-477-7687. Johnny, our super friends are out there. They're doing the good work. They're preaching the word of the Fortress of Nerditude. How can they help us out this week?
Rate the show so that Forward of Nerditude is not as hard to find as a comic book movie that I've actually seen.
Go see Spider-Man Homecoming. That's your homework. You got to do that, man. You will,
I do.
you will,
I want to
like
very badly.
I know you. I know you will, man. I know. You'll get there. See, I know you will.
When's it going to be on Netflix? I have Netflix.
I don't know, but it's got to be kind of soon because it's been out on like digital and DVD for a while now. So yeah. I would imagine it's going to be coming soon.
But when will then be now?
Then will be now. When now is then?
Spencer.
I don't know. Yeah, I know you're setting me up, but I was like,
I lobbed you a Spaceballs. The answer is soon. But when will then be now?
Soon. Yes. Okay. Let me ask you a question, Johnny.
Yeah,
today here in the States, it's President's Day. Actually, today while we're recording is President's Day. So I thought maybe we'd talk a little bit about things involving presidents and a little, national pride. And so let me ask you a question. This last weekend, not to get back into sports, but it is something in pop culture, so it does fit here. This last weekend was the NBA All-Star Game. Did you, by chance, watch the NBA All-Star Game?
I caught little bits of a number of the other games. I mean, I'm not a huge NBA fan, but I caught little bits of a number of games while I was at work.
Uh-huh.
But I know where you're going.
So let's talk about this then. I didn't watch it. I mean, as I told you, I was super, super busy. However, something happened at the ball game that needs to be talked about. Fergie from the Black Eyed Peas. The Black Eyed Peas, they were a band that was, big in the early 2000s that,
and then produced Fergie.
Yeah, and they produced Fergie, and now we have Fergie. She is Fergalicious, though, I've been told. I don't know what that means, but the kids are saying it. The kids. She sang the national anthem at the NBA All-Star Game.
Yeah, she did.
However, I wouldn't say this would be a classical, traditional rendition. It was more of like a stripped down, like slow, jazzy version of the national anthem. Have you seen this thing?
I did. I actually watched the video right before we recorded.
Thoughts?
Let's go good first, right? Like, you always got to look at the positive first. It's better than when Roseanne did it.
True. She looks Fergalicious.
She does always looks Fergalicious.
Always.
So I was reading through the article, and it was talking about how she apologized afterwards, and I don't know if that was necessarily called for. It was weird. It was jazzy. Like, you listen to this and you're like, that's weird and jazzy, but you can still tell it's the same basic tune.
For the most part.
Yeah. I didn't like it. I don't care necessarily for Fergie. I don't know how she is as a person, but her music's not really my thing.
Sure.
But I don't know if as big of a deal should have been made out of it maybe as it was to make her apologize.
Right. So I'm with you there. Like the whole like thing that she apologized. So let's break this down. As a musical artist, you're gonna want to put your own spin on things. Like, do you remember when Beyonce sang the national anthem for the Super Bowl? This was like maybe 2004, 2005, somewhere around there. Like,
I might have been out to sea, but maybe.
Okay, it was fantastic. I remember that I actually went onto iTunes. Yes, I actually purchased music on iTunes back then. I went onto iTunes and I purchased the single, like just her version from the Super Bowl, because I remember it being like really amazing. It still was pretty much the original, but she had some great runs and she did some things with it that was just amazing. Which is funny because like now I never even purchase a single song. I always purchase the entire album. Sure. If I like something, I I stopped doing single song purchases forever ago. But I remember at the time that was one of my first iTunes purchases was Beyonce doing the national anthem at the Super Bowl that year. And it was fantastic. And so I'm all for people like taking some liberties with the national anthem. I'm not one of these people like you saw people on Twitter saying, you know, like she shouldn't sing and just sing it the way it's meant to be. I'm not going to fall into that camp. You know, I fully support an artist's right to do their own interpretation, to change things up. However, there is something to be said that if you go too far out of the norm and you interpret too interestingly different, that it's going to not resonate with a lot of people, and it may not go over the way you intended to go over. And I think that's what happened here, because it felt like she could have been in the 1940s at some sort of like jazz lounge singing this, and maybe that would have been better. But in today's day and age, it just didn't fit. It didn't sound right. And then on top of that, she maybe went off key a few places, and she did some runs that just seemed really, really, really kind of out there. And then I don't know why this bugs me the most about it, but at the end of the whole thing, she's like, "Let's go play some basketball." And she kind of shouts that out. And I'm like, this isn't like the 7th inning stretch when we sing "Take Me Out to the Ball Game," and at the end of it, it's Harry Carey saying, "Let's get some runs." Like, that's traditional, right? But it was like, let's play some basketball. It was weird. It was awkward.
Yeah, no, I get that. You know, in theory, that it's over. People clap. She bows out and scurries her little Fergie booty off the stage.
Right.
I don't know, man. So, okay, I went to a concert a while back. I say a while back. Holy crap! It was 17 years ago or so, 18 years ago. And they opened it up, and this guy had won the ability to play the national anthem to start this concert off, and he did the Jimi Hendrix like national anthem. And I know I've heard this, but his version sticks in my head. This one kid's version, and you're going through it. And it's amazing. Like, I mean, Jimi Hendrix doing the national anthem is one of the coolest things you'll ever hear. I mean, unless you're a communist. But like, there's this part in it where he just starts going nuts on a guitar in the middle of it, and you're like, but is that okay? Like, if people didn't seem to mind that, why are they so up in arms about
I think people minded the Jimi Hendrix version back in the day.
You don't think so?
Yes, absolutely. Because you were gonna because Jimi Hendrix was very much, you know, like liberal, you know, very anti-war, and that his version was kind of was part of the war protest, you know, it was at Woodstock, right? So you would have a lot of like very conservative types in the country that probably hated that at the time. Absolutely hated that. I can absolutely see that being a thing. And I'm sure some sort of music historian could probably look that up or probably have that information and could probably verify that was true, that there was, you know, detractors that did not care for that. Personally, I think it's great. I think musically it's awesome. But once again, though, when he did that, he strays off and he has that solo, but then he still comes back to the melody again, and he kind of gets back to it and he plays that a little bit more, and then he kind of strays off it and comes back to it, and then, you know, kind of does that a few times. But this case, and don't get me wrong, I don't think this thing was horrible. It wasn't great. It wasn't horrible. It was just different, and I think a lot of people, you know, I think right now we also live in a culture where a lot of people are hypercritical of everything, and they blow everything out of proportion. And so people, you know, just make her sing it the right way, make her sing it the way it was intended to be. You know, God made it this way, which that's not true. Francis Scott Key wrote it, not God. But
I mean, never mind. I'm sure there was a joke somewhere in there.
Yeah, right.
Highly inappropriate.
But, you know, I think what makes this really, really bad, to be perfectly honest, was when the camera starts panning and showing like people in the crowd and the players. They didn't look like they were too impressed. They had like looks on their face like, oh gosh, can we get this over with? This is bad. And I think that only made it worse from, you know, at least from my perspective. It's like that made it considerably worse. Now,
Yeah.
should she have apologized? I don't know. But it's President's Day, and she did. And you know what? I give her a lot of credit for trying something different, for trying to do it a different way, have an interpretation on it. I would have advised her not to do that let's play basketball little routine she did at the end. But
Do you know how great that would have been had she like said the wrong sport?
oh gosh, that would be like when Jeff Gordon came to Wrigley Field, and he was, because after Harry Carey died, they ended up kind of going through this thing now where they like invite people to sing the seventh inning stretch. Sometimes it's celebrities, sometimes it's like the local, the state, high school softball championship team, and they'll sing it out. But they had Jeff Gordon sing it one time years ago, and he sings it out. And at the end, if the Cubs are behind, it's, the chant is, let's get some runs. But usually at the beginning, they'll say something like, come on, Wrigley, or come on, Wrigley Field, let's sing it, da, da, da. And a 1, and a 2, and a 3. And Jeff Gordon gets up there and he goes, come on, Wrigley Stadium, let's do this.
Oh.
And I was like,
oh,
dude, that's the classic, like when the band gets on stage and they're like, hello, hello, Shelbyville. And they're like, pss, pss, pss. He looks at the back of the guitar. I mean, Springfield.
Yeah.
Which is a little Simpsons joke there. But it's that thing, like, you don't call it by the wrong name. Like, if she would have said, like, let's go win some cricket or something like that. I mean, good night.
Oh, if she had said something like that, I was thinking she yells like play ball at the end of it. And like, that's
Right.
not a basketball thing.
Or she's like, let's score some touchdowns.
Yeah.
Ooh, yeah, that would be bad.
Yeah.
But she didn't do that. But the let's play some basketball.
Yeah, it could have been better.
Could have been better. But you know what? She didn't ask my opinion, so I couldn't help her out there. So okay, so that's like the first thing. I think it's just it's out there. It's happened. It's President's Day, and it's the national anthem, and typically we hear the national anthem quite a few times on President's Day as we talk about presidents, former, beloved, non-beloved, whatever. So here's the thing I want to ask you, Johnny.
Okay.
Since it's President's Day, we typically see in like movies or television shows and even in video games, sometimes we get a realistic portrayal of a president, like someone, like I can think of the movie, I think it's 13 Days, which was about the Cuban Missile Crisis. And there was, I think the actor's name is Bruce Greenwood, who played JFK. And so like he was trying to be JFK in that movie. And so some movies, some video games, some TV shows, whatever, we get a realistic portrayal of a real president, a real, past president. And then a lot of others kind of go this different route where they're like, well, we don't want to do a real president because in our world it's a little bit different and we're doing other things. So they make up a president. Who is your favorite made up president from like nerd pop culture? Like is there a president that sticks out to you in your mind that like you wish was a real president we had?
So it's funny you ask this because there's a couple shows that I watch, and there's one that's on right now. Designated Survivor. Have you seen Designated Survivor?
I have not, but I've wanted to.
So it's
Is it
Kiefer
good?
Sutherland. Yeah,
Jack
it's very
Bauer.
well. Yeah, I mean, not anymore. But yeah, Kiefer Sutherland. He was the secretary of something stupid. Anyway, so he was the secretary of, I don't know, urban development, I believe it was. And he was actually going to get fired the next day. Like he already knew he was going to get removed from that position and be sent off to some other position. And they went to do the State of the Union, and as I would say a number of people know, during the State of the Union, everyone is there.
Right.
Except for the designated survivor. So they have one guy who's in the chain of succession who's like, okay, you're going to be here. If something blows everyone up, you become president. And they pick some piddly dude, right?
Yeah.
This is not going to happen.
Right.
Well, in the TV show, it happened. And so you have this guy, and he is now president. And people don't think he should be there. There's no Congress. There's no House of Rep. There's no Senate. There's no nothing, right? Like, well, I think one person from each of those two things is somehow alive. But he's a middle of the road, just wants best things for the nation. Like, he is like, when you think of what would you really want from a guy, he's not a hardcore Democrat, he's not a hardcore liberal. He wants these good things and whatever else. And it's almost sad because like the odds of us ever getting a president like that. I mean, I don't like, so I mean, I don't want to even go into the current administration because that's going to be a whole thing, but like
sure.
Obama, right? I mean, there are people out there that loved Obama and there's people out there that hated Obama. And I was surrounded by both of those for 8 years. And God, that was painful 8 years of hearing one side or the other, because I think he meant well, whether I agree with his politics or not. I think he meant well with a lot of stuff he did, but he was still a very liberal guy, right? And so you're not going to get that middle of the road guy and stuff. So you see these things like that, and you're just like, oh, I want this guy. And you see, you're like, this is him. Like, that's him. You're like, oh, but I'm watching a TV show.
Right.
But the other one, and if you haven't seen this, another show you have to watch. Have you seen The West Wing?
Oh, of course.
Okay, I am currently rewatching my way through The West Wing. I've already seen it all the way through. I'm in season 5, which is where it kind of starts going downhill. Like, it stops being as good.
Yeah.
But Jed Bartlett, to have Jed, and I don't necessarily agree with all the political stuff that they push, but especially the way that the show displays this is it shows these are the liberal agendas, these are the Republican agendas, and they actually break down why their agendas are not the greatest sometimes, right? Like they go through that stuff, and oh man.
Can I just tell you, I've watched The West Wing through front to back at least 5 times. It goes down in my book as one of the best TV shows of all time.
Oh yeah, hands down. Like I said, I'm
Hands
rewatching
down.
it now, and I'm just like, oh, like Aaron Sorkin, who makes. I mean, I don't think there's a single thing Aaron Sorkin's made that I have not liked.
Have you? Okay, so let me ask you this then. Little side tangent. Have you heard of the podcast called The West Wing by Joshua Molina, and he's got like another co-host?
I have.
Have you ever listened to it? I only listened so far to the first introduction episode, because here's the problem is that my wife wants me to watch Psych really bad, and there's a bunch of stuff I want to get to, and I've seen this show so much, but I know that if I start listening to this podcast, and each episode they break down an episode of The West Wing, and they talk about it, and they'll have like former cast members from the show come on as a guest and talk about it, and they'll talk about the politics of it. I'm afraid that if I start listening to the podcast, I'm going to have to go back and rewatch it again. And like my list is a mile long of things I need to watch. And my wife is really knocking on the door for me to watch Psych with her because she loves that show and she thinks I need to get into it.
Well, you know what the crazy thing with Psych is
Dule Hill.
Yes. And he is he might be in. Okay, he is for sure in my top 5 TV characters ever. His character Charlie on The West Wing.
Love it.
One of the greatest characters. Bradley Whitford.
Yep.
I
love Bradley Whitford in that show.
I love Bradley Whitford and everything until like the newer stuff. Like he's a bit older now. I don't enjoy him as much. But like the show that came out after The West Wing is called Studio 60 on the Sunset Strip.
Yep. I saw it.
I just bought that recently. I bought the DVD set for like $10 on eBay.
Really?
Oh, I love that show.
It was a good show. I did like it too. It didn't catch on, unfortunately.
No, but okay. So anyway, so back to the original question. Jed Bartlett from The West Wing, because like I said, you may or may not agree with this stuff, but like he came across like he was seriously wanting to do good things.
Yep.
If I had to go movie, and I tried to think about this, it's got to be Dave.
Dave, I love that movie.
But not the real Dave, the step-in Dave.
Yes.
Because he caught a fish this
big. I love that movie. That's a really good comedy. I really enjoyed that movie.
But it just makes you like see a president that you're like, this is a good guy. And the last one that we had that I could think of that's like you could go hang out with and be like, this is a fun guy to hang out with. Granted, had many other flaws. Was Bill Clinton.
Right.
And so
Bill Clinton has been on our podcast a time or two. I don't know if you knew that. Well, I tell you there, Jonny Casino, that it's great to be here with you. It's so bad.
Oh, wow. I don't even try these things for a reason.
Yeah. I'm not afraid. Okay, so I would have chosen Jed Bartlett. Matter of fact, he was my number one, but I had a backup just in case you went there. Because I always try to think of this. I'm like, okay, here's what I want. But if whoever I'm talking to has the same thing, I don't want to be like, yeah, me too, for all the same reasons. And then, it's kind of like, well, that was a crappy way to end the podcast. So here's what I have. And I'm going to give you a little taste of it, and then we can talk about it, okay? You ready for this?
Oh, God.
Good morning. In less than an hour, aircraft from here will join with others from around the world, and you will be launching the largest aerial battle in the history of mankind. Mankind! That word should have new meaning for all of us today. We can't be consumed by our petty differences anymore. We will be united in our common interests. Perhaps it's fate that today is the 4th of July, and you will once again be fighting for our freedom, not from tyranny, oppression, or persecution, but from annihilation. We are fighting for our right to live, to exist. And should we win the day, the 4th of July will no longer be known as an American holiday, but as the day the world declared in one voice, we will not go quietly into the night. We will not vanish without a fight. We're going to live on. We're going to survive. Today, we celebrate our Independence Day.
This is a scene from House of Cards, right?
Yes, exactly. That President Thomas J. Whitmore from the movie Independence Day. I thought that, in that movie, especially that scene, right? It was he was super presidential, he seemed because he had a little daughter in the show, he seemed relatable. He seemed he's a guy that you could talk to. But then when it came time to I've got to make this big rousing speech to inspire these pilots, these crop dusting farmers and retired Air Force guys to go fight aliens to help protect the entire planet. That's the speech you have to deliver. You have to motivate. And I really freaking love Bill Pullman. And I loved him in that movie, and I thought he was a great president. He was my number 2. He was my backup to Jedediah Bartlett.
I love that we had the same real answer though.
Yes. And another one that I would have put in there was from a TV show, would have been President David Palmer from 24, because he starts off the senator. I liked his character. I really liked his character, and I liked the fact that his character was willing to listen to Jack Bauer, even though Jack Bauer comes across as crazy at times. But he's you gotta trust me. And he's Jack's never let us down. Let's go with Jack. And they're what are you doing? And it's and now we're off to the races. Hijinks is going to ensue. I loved that.
Oh, man.
So this is going to be my question for the Super Friends.
Okay.
It's President's today when we record, but it'll be a few days after. Who is your favorite on-screen or in-game president? Not a real president, not a representation of a real president, but who's your favorite on-screen president? If you come with us and you say Jed Bartlett, extra bonus points, you'll be invited for a permanent spot here on the couch of the Fortress of Nerditude. But who you got? Let us know, and you can reach us. Twitter at Fort of Nerd, Facebook.com/Fort of Nerd, email, which is fortofnerd@gmail.com, or the phone number 801-477-7687. Let us know. I want to hear what you got. Who's your president? Who's your man or woman? Because maybe you're going to go Battlestar Galactica and you got a woman president there. Whatever.
Or Scandal, or Homeland. They both have female presidents in the new seasons.
What you got? Bring it to us. Let us know. Jonny, thank you once again for being willing to jump in. Let our super friends know all the places on the internet they can find you.
So you can hit me up on Twitter at Jonny_Casino. It's JONNY_Casino.
No
Everyone
H.
wants to throw an H in there, and I guess every time I write it, it always puts a squiggly red line under it, but there's no H in that part of my name, so forget you all. So yeah, Jonny_Casino. I keep my direct messages open, even though no one ever DMs me.
What?
I don't know. I keep them open thinking in case someone ever wants to say something, but it never happens. So to that, I do Shelved and Forgotten comes out every Wednesday, normally in the morning. We try to go live on the Forget Being Cool YouTube channel. If you follow me on Twitter, I tweet out the link to it when it happens. I also do Generational Gamers, comes out every other Wednesday or something like that. Something like that. It's hard to keep track because of traveling and stuff. But anyways, I just started the new show, apparently, a parenting podcast. If you're a parent, check it out. Maybe you like it. If you do, keep listening. If you don't, I understand.
If you like it, rate it on iTunes. Give it that 5-star thumbs up, 2 gold buttons, whatever it takes. Make it happen.
I mean, if you can give me 2 gold buttons, man, I'm down.
I'm just saying, it's a thing. Well, from here at the Fortress of Nerditude, wherever you are, may the Force be with you. Always.